Chairman Yeager, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce to the House of Representatives that the Senate has completed the business of the first annual session of the 112th General Assembly.
We thank you very much. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Journal of the House of Representatives and the proceedings thereof be approved from the first through the second organizational day and from the first through the 34th legislative day of the first session.
Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Senate Joint Resolution number 771, I move the House of Representatives of the 112th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee adjourn until 12 noon on Tuesday, January the 11th, 2022.
Ladies and gentlemen, in accordance with the Senate Joint Resolution number 771, I hereby declare the first regular session of the House of Representatives of the 112th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee adjourned until 12 noon on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022.
Hello, friend. This is Aaron Snodderly with your Capitol update for the week of May 9th, 2021. What you just saw was the State House and State Senate at the Capitol in Nashville, Tennessee, declaring that the first half of the 112th General Assembly is now finished and concluded. They have now recessed until January 11th of 2022. All in all, I would say that it was a successful year. They passed a lot of good legislation. However, they did defer a lot of good legislation. But thankfully, there was no bad legislation passed or even attempted to be passed, really, at least not like we see in other states around the country. And for this, I am very grateful, and I believe you should be as well. We're thankful for each representative, senator, and governor who desires to represent our state and lead our state in a constitutional conservative manner. If I was to grade this session, I would personally probably give it a B+ to an A-. I think they did good, but they could have done better. However, while we are thankful for that which they did, there are some things that we're sad about, because even though there was a lot of pressure put on the Lieutenant Governor to allow HJR 150 to pass, and this of course has become known as the Bible bill, he still decided to sit on it and not allow it to even be voted on. I am grateful, however, that he met with me and Mr. Stephen Skelton of the American Bible Project and talked to us about this bill. He allowed us to explain to him that while we may not have supported it in the past because of its religious nature, we now do support it because it's being presented as a historical book. And he explained his reasoning for us, and I'm not sure that we changed his mind a whole lot, but I'm thankful that he met with us and allowed us to talk about it. He promised that he would pray about it during this off season, and Lord willing, God will speak to his heart and encourage him to allow it to be voted on next year. We need you in the meantime to pray for him, and if you get a chance to reach out to him, let him know you want the Bible bill to be voted on and passed next year. Also, not only did they defer the Bible bill, but they also deferred a bill that would prohibit COVID vaccine mandates for public school children across our state. This was a bill we supported primarily for religious purposes, but it passed the House, and yet the Senate decided to defer and vote on it next year. So please pray with us about this. We believe this is good legislation. We need it to pass next year. Also, the Senate deferred the Anti-Riot bill, as it has become known, and basically this bill would protect drivers who unintentionally hit protesters while they're protesting. And personally, I do see the arguments on both sides of this bill, but it passed the House, and yet the Senate decided to defer it till next year and send it to a summer study group this summer. So pray about that. This bill has some implications that could be good or bad, and so it might not be a bad idea that they decided to defer it so that it could be studied more. While we are sad that some things were deferred till next year, we're also glad that a lot of things passed. This session we saw pro-life legislation passed. We saw bills that would protect female sports and try to protect our bathrooms pass. And so a lot of good things happened. This past week even, Governor Bill Lee declared that he was ending all federal funding for unemployment in our state. His reason for doing so is because he said that Tennessee businesses cannot operate properly without Tennessee employees. And the reason so many people are staying home and not getting out and working right now isn't because of the coronavirus, but because they're making what they feel is a decent living through unemployment. And yet we cannot continue to pay unemployment without Tennessee employees paying taxes to pay for the unemployment. It's kind of a circular thing that we need to understand, and the governor does understand it, and so he rightfully decided that we should end the federal funding of unemployment in our state as a way of incentivizing our citizens to get out and work. After all, if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. Also, Governor Lee has recently endorsed a constitutional amendment that would limit the number of Supreme Court justices. Historically, the number has been 9, and yet recently the Democrats are proposing that we add 4 more, which is 4 more than we've ever had, to the Supreme Court so that they can once again have the balance of power they want. And Governor Lee has decided that he thinks we need to have a constitutional amendment to limit it to the historical number of 9. We're glad the governor said this. Obviously, he has no real power or authority to make this happen, but we're thankful that he spoke up and said that, hey, he supports this amendment. So a lot of good things are still happening in our state. There are more things we believe will be happening this summer we look forward to talking to you about. In Washington, though, speaking of court packing, there are some other things happening that we need to pray much about. H.R. 1, which has become known as the For the People Act, which is a federal takeover of all our elections across the country, is being considered once again in the Senate this week and probably next week. This is a terrible bill that will have huge implications on pretty much every aspect of life potentially. And so we need to pray against this bill. You need to contact your senators in Washington and tell them that you oppose H.R. 1, the For the People Act. Also, last week, President Biden sadly became the first president to omit God from his National Day of Prayer proclamation. Now, it just makes common sense. If you're praying, surely to goodness you'd mention God. But yet somehow he failed to do so. And it's sad that our country has reached a point where our president, who has people, and he himself even, plan and diligently write these speeches that he gives and these prayers that he makes, and yet somehow God was left out. I think that's the main problem with America today. It's not Democrats or Republicans as much as it is Democrats and Republicans, and even Christians, are leaving God out of their daily lives. God forgive us for forgetting Him. Also, House Democrats last week chose to replace the word women with birthing people. And if that's not bad enough, they decided to do so before Mother's Day. God help our country when we choose to take such an approach. God created man and woman, and He said that women would bring forth children. And the fact that people are rebelling against that and trying to say that it's no longer women, it's birthing people, the fact that they're rebelling against that, I believe, is further proof that many Americans are directly rebelling against God. Also last week, the Health and Human Services Department chose to eliminate religious exemptions for doctors concerning same-sex changes. You know, historically, doctors have always had the right to refuse certain surgeries or certain procedures based on their religious convictions. But now, the Health and Human Services Department has decided that no doctor should have the right to refuse to perform a sex change if asked to. Please pray for God to give our doctors boldness and courage to stand up and do that which is right. Before I let you go, I want to encourage you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Right now, Israel is under attack, and we know that it's ultimately the powers of darkness that are behind it all. And the Bible tells us specifically to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The Bible says that God will bless those who bless Israel, and He will curse those who curse Israel. So in other words, if we want God to bless America, then we need to pray for God to bless Israel. We need to be a blessing to Israel. And so I encourage you, pray for our president, pray for our country, pray that we will always be a strong ally and friend to the nation of Israel. And while you're praying for these things, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thank you so much for watching. I ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and share this video on all your social media platforms. Since the legislative session is now concluded for this year, we will probably be taking several weeks off and hope to come back later this summer with some more exciting things that we can get involved in and you can be a part of, Lord willing. So pay attention, and we'll be informing you of these things here in the future. But until then, I pray that God will use each and every one of us to bless America and Israel. And I thank you for investing in your future through our ministry.